Hi, I'm Sarah Gardner. It's a critical element not only for your lawn or garden, but in making sure that we have enough food to feed a growing population. Coming up, the challenge in doing more with less water. We'll take you to Washington State, where scientists are helping farmers grow bountiful crops in one of the driest regions of the country. Georgia farmers check out options to save water for future crops. How do you keep those fairways green on the golf course? In Florida, it's all about grass that's a bit less thirsty. And we've all heard about global warming and climate change. It's even impacting people who make their living on the water. It's all coming up on America's Heartland.
America's Heartland is made possible by CropLife America, representing the companies whose modern farming innovations help America's farmers provide nutritious food for communities around the globe. The Fund for Agriculture Education, a fund created by KBIE to support America's Heartland programming. Contributors include the following.
You can see it in the eyes of every woman and man in America's heartland, living close to the land. There's a love for the country and a pride in the brand. In America's heartland, living close to the land.
I'm Sarah Gardner. Thanks for joining us on America's Heartland. No matter where you live in the United States, water is an issue. Sometimes it's too much, as we've seen in flooding along major riverways, but often it's too little. Significant portions of the country have seen extended periods of drought in recent years, impacting more than just farmers and crops. When it doesn't rain, grass for cattle doesn't grow. That means ranchers have to buy feed for their herds or trim back their cattle numbers. Those decisions impact everything from beef prices at the supermarket to the sale of meat to customers overseas. Much of the country depends on produce from California and southwest Arizona. But ongoing water restrictions there have forced growers to reduce the number of acres in production. A lack of water has a domino effect, ultimately affecting food prices, even the availability of some crops we've come to enjoy. And there's a bigger question. What do the forecasts of climate change and global warming mean for agriculture in the future? Our Rob Stewart says it's a question that impacts not only farmers and ranchers, but even those who make their living on the water.
There is a particular beauty to the orderly arrangement of crops in the heartland. Rows of corn, open expanses of wheat, or a green carpet of soybeans spreading out to the horizon. It's an agricultural canvas heavily dependent on sunshine, moisture, and good weather. But questions about climate change go well beyond weather's seasonal challenges to agricultural production. A wide range of scientific studies show that increasing levels of carbon dioxide and other greenhouse gases are increasing temperatures around the world.
Weather is something that farmers deal with on a daily basis, but when we look at the long-term trends of what the impacts of climate are, we really need to be mindful of what we can do to mitigate and to make sure that we're equipped to adapt to climate change.
Mitigating the effects of climate change is a priority for California. Studies in the Golden State point to temperature increases of nearly 3% by 2050, and perhaps double that by the end of the century.
Thinking about changes in temperatures, nighttime temperatures, and what does that mean for our well-known, world-renowned wine grape and wine industry. Thinking about chill hours, what's happening in the wintertime that's really impacting the productivity and the quality of our fresh tree fruit and our citrus.
California and many other states see rising temperatures affecting more than just chill hours. Higher temperatures could mean more droughts, a greater risk of wildfires, even impact water supplies for hydroelectric power. And California sees a negative effect on public health and food security.
Climate change brings a lot of risks to this food security component. For example, we know that with the increased CO2 levels, you're getting increased temperatures, and when you have increased temperatures, that puts stresses on our crop production. If you look at animal agriculture, you get stresses on the animals, which leads to reduction in things like milk production.
All of this is critical to the country's #1 dairy state and a region that provides a third of the nation's vegetables and much of the country's fresh fruits and tree nuts. But climate change will also impact the wide open expanses of corn, soybean, and wheat fields in the Midwest and Plains states, crops critical to both human and animal food supplies. In these test plots at the University of Illinois, researchers mimic the growing conditions that crops will face in the future. Pipes spray increased levels of carbon dioxide and ozone into the fields. One result, a reduction in the nutritional quality of some grains.
That's significant because there are about 2 billion people in the world who depend almost entirely on cereals and grains as their sources of zinc and iron. But for that fraction of the population, it could be significant. Wheat, it's more of an issue because in addition to reductions in zinc and iron, you also have a reduction in protein content.
Researchers here and elsewhere want to examine how farmers might change production techniques to meet the challenge and what the agriculture industry can do to make crops more resilient to these changing conditions. Crops aside, a United Nations science panel says rising temperatures will also impact food sources from rivers, lakes, and oceans. A group called the Island Institute has been working with fishermen to examine conditions in Maine.
Along the coast of Maine, the communities here are really concerned about the effects that climate change is having, particularly in those communities that are really dependent on fisheries. We need to be looking at managing at scales that respect the way that the ecosystem functions and how we describe to others the impact that these changes are having on all of us. This is a time when people are rolling up their sleeves and trying to sort out what the future looks like for them, and they're going to continue to work hard to get the best information that they can.
Changing water conditions may be responsible for an increase in lobster numbers off the coast of Maine. That's good news, but increasing water temperatures have been cited as part of the reason for a decline in the lobster population in Long Island Sound to the south. And there's another seafood concern. Fisheries off the coasts of Washington State and Alaska are looking at ocean acidification. Increasing carbon dioxide absorbed by the ocean is one of several elements changing the chemistry of seawater. That change affects the ability of shellfish, lobsters, snow crabs, and others to form shells and skeletons.
As ocean acidification or environmental changes impact the fisheries, I think we need to be hypersensitive, and I see a lot of autopilot on fishery management where I think we need to spend more money on fishery management to be ahead of the curve versus behind the curve.
The question is, what do we expect to see in Alaska and with all of our fisheries? I would say that the response from the fishermen has been one of concern. I think they're aware that it's out there. They're aware that it could negatively impact their fisheries, but there's so much unknown still that a lot of folks have put their opinions, I think, to the side, waiting to see what we have to show them.
Climate change will require new resources and adaptations to handle an expected population growth of more than 2 billion people by 2050. Many have already begun looking ahead, recognizing the need to make critical changes incrementally.
You need to always be looking at long-term. There's no doubt about that, because that's also how we've learned from the past. But I think it's especially important that we're constantly looking 10, 20, 50 years out. It needs time, it needs cycles, it needs seasons to really come up with the best solutions for us.
Drought has been a fact of life throughout history. Some areas of South America went for decades without significant rain. Drought in the 1930s produced the Dust Bowl in the American Southwest, and ongoing extreme drought conditions are the norm in some parts of China and Australia.
Eastern Washington State has long been an important source of grain crops for both domestic use and sales overseas. But the expansive range of wheat fields hides an existing challenge. The region sometimes gets less than 10 inches of rain a year. So scientists have spent decades helping farmers grow healthy crops with very little moisture. This vast landscape of gray skies and steady winds may suggest a place blessed by abundant rain. But this cloudy June day in eastern Washington is misleading. Farmer Ron Geray, whose family's been working this land since 1884, says each season they plant and pray the heavens will provide enough moisture to sustain their winter wheat.
It comes only in the winter. It's not reliable as far as how much we're going to get each winter, but a lot of these crops like some moisture in the spring, and it's been known to stop raining and any kind of precipitation from February on. It makes it kind of difficult.
With rainfall so scarce, the prospect of a disappointing harvest and financial distress has always been part of life for these dryland farmers. But in 1915, Washington State University began researching ways to coax more abundance from this parched and dusty soil. It created the Dryland Research Station, laboratories, machine shops for new farm inventions, and more than 1,300 acres of land for experimental planting.
I like being able to think I'm doing something useful.
Bill Schillinger is a scientist, professor, and the director of the station.
Are we operating in isolation? In a way, yes, because no one else has such unique environments. We're in a winter rainfall region with dry summers. The circle I work in is first, let's keep the soil from blowing, so we need conservation soil management.
Preventing erosion and conserving precious topsoil does more than help farmers grow bigger crops.
Whenever there's a dust storm, whenever there's an exceedance of the federal air standard, it's always associated with high wind events and blowing dust from agricultural fields. And so researchers and wheat growers fess up. So that's what we really want to stop.
In the past, farmers here grew only winter wheat, planted in the fall, harvested in the summer. That meant fields lying bare or fallow, often for months. With Dryland Research help, farmers are trying new crop rotations to reduce dangerous dust. And they're assisting with test plots like these on Ron Geray's farm. This, all in addition to no-till farming, where crop residue from the last harvest is left on the ground. So this is the original boot that was on the machine?
Correct.
Bruce Sauer, another station researcher, is modifying this planting machine to better penetrate the extra surface debris.
And hopefully be able to seed deeper.
Yeah, so
since we're going to make a better furrow.
The seed will go in here, come out here, and you're hoping on this prototype that it will be planted deeper.
Correct.
I think everybody needs to have a bottom line that's profitable. And you don't want to see the ground move. I mean, none of us want to see the ground move because there's somebody coming up behind us to take care of it when we're done.
Back at the lab, researchers are planting wheat seedlings 8 inches deep in pots of hard, compacted soil.
Right now, the methodology that we have established, we're very confident is very close to what farmers experience when they're seeding in the field.
Researcher Steve Schofstall has learned that even with much-needed rain, timing is important. Coming at the wrong time, the rain can adversely affect seedlings approaching the surface.
If a rain comes and rains on top of the soil surface, it can create a soil crusting, which makes it difficult for the seedlings to emerge through that crust. It'll continue to grow, but it can't break through that crust, so what happens is it kind of accordions like this, and after a while, it'll just die.
Wheat is nearly a $1 billion industry in Washington. It's third biggest crop behind apples and dairy products. And up to 90% of Washington wheat growers are completely dependent on rainfall. For Bill and his team, it's a big responsibility, improving crops and air quality. But the payoff is work that not only sustains vital production, but ultimately keeps prices down on a vast array of consumer products.
It sounds corny, but I really am passionate about my job, and it's great to get paid to do what I'm passionate about. We work with progressive farmers who feel the same way and are leading the pack, and that's how we're going to make it happen.
In an average year, American farmers raise more than 2 billion bushels of wheat. The grain is grown in 42 states across the country on nearly 63 million acres of land. Wheat is critical as a food resource. 1 bushel of wheat can make more than 75 one-pound loaves of bread. And did you know that more food is made from wheat than any other cereal grain? You'll find wheat in breakfast cereals, pasta, pizza, tortillas, and other foods that depend on flour, like your birthday cake.
Having enough moisture to guarantee a crop is important when you're planning on tomatoes or zucchini from your backyard garden. It's even more important when you're looking at a field with 1,000 acres of corn. Our Jason Shoultz takes us to Georgia, where farmers and researchers are working together to help Mother Nature use every drop efficiently.
Without water, without proper timing of water, without our ability to use it, we couldn't exist.
For Glenn Cox, water is life, or at least crucial to his livelihood. This fifth-generation farmer grows sweet corn, field corn, and peanuts on more than 1,000 acres in southwest Georgia. And season after season, Cox is at the mercy of the weather and the uncertain supply of this life-giving liquid.
And crops like this sweet corn are totally dependent on critical water at critical times.
But getting water where they need it is an ongoing challenge for Georgia farmers. The region's been subjected to both flooding and drought in recent years. In addition, Georgia has been locked into a decades-long water war with Florida and Alabama. The two states have gone to court and involved federal officials and Congress in a dispute over access to water from places like the Chattahoochee-Flint River Basin. That water forms the Apalachicola River in Florida and also flows into Alabama to help irrigate crops, generate power, and protect freshwater ecosystems like Apalachicola Bay off the Florida coast.
Without water, there's really not much agriculture here. Certainly, maybe even more important than even oil in our part of the world.
Now, science and conservation efforts have come to play a role in affecting water supplies for the region. The goal is to use technology to grow more and use less. At the University of Georgia Stripling Irrigation Research Park, researchers are working with experts from the Department of Agriculture and even the Nature Conservancy. 130 acres packed with 1,000 test plots from peanuts to pecans, soybeans to sweet corn.
We call it variable rate irrigation, and it was developed to allow our farmers to do a better job of applying their irrigation water. In essence, it makes it much more precise than earlier.
Here's how it works. Statewide, Georgia farmers use about 15,000 of these center pivot sprayers, huge metallic structures that roll slowly across entire fields, spraying massive amounts of water. A lot is wasted. But now a new computerized system senses moisture levels in the soil to see which areas need more or less water and adjusts the volume accordingly. The result, a significant reduction in water used.
In Georgia, there are approximately 15,000 center pivots, so if we equipped maybe just 2/3 of those, let's say, with a system like this, we could save billions of gallons of water a year.
But saving water is not cheap. Some of the largest of these new systems can cost farmers more than $20,000 each, though there are federal programs to help offset that hefty price tag. And this is only one of many ways science is seeking to save this precious resource. Drip irrigation, watering crops beneath the soil, and developing crops that need less water to begin with. It's a cooperative effort, scientists and those who work the soil making changes for the present and the future.
Water is critical. Wasting water is foolish. We have to be stewards of this land, and being a steward means we have to manage it properly.
Water is a critical agricultural issue in many parts of the world, not only for livestock, but growing crops as well. It takes more than 110 gallons of water to grow a pound of corn, 65 gallons to grow a pound of potatoes, and hundreds of gallons to plant and raise a pound of rice.
Just how good your front lawn looks may be the closest you'll come to concerns about water. But what about large expanses of grass, say a park or a golf course? Turf science is a multi-million-dollar business in the U.S. and a major agricultural product in many states. Jason Shoultz says for some growers in Florida, that means new types of grass to face the challenge of drought and disease.
A perfectly manicured golf course. Perhaps the location where the most respect is paid to grass. But leave the course and look around. Weeds, dry spots, muddy messes. No respect. You quickly discover that turf grass is, well, something we don't think about very much. Heck, it gets walked over its entire life. And according to Jason Cruz, we should be paying a lot more attention to the stuff under our feet.
Take another look at it. Don't take it for granted.
Cruz is a professor of all things grass at the University of Florida. Why study grass? It's a $100 million crop in this state, impacting 90,000 jobs.
There's something about walking around barefoot in a manicured lawn and just enjoying, the birds and the trees and everything going on around you, and kind of letting the rest of the world fade away for a little bit.
Admittedly, I am guilty too of not giving grass its due. I needed more convincing.
So on a Saturday afternoon when 90,000 people are watching the players on the field, you're not?
No.
Professor Cruz wanted to convince me more of the importance of grass by bringing me here, to this place known as the Swamp. It's where the Florida Gators football team beats up on their opponents every fall. While the offensive line might inflict pain, the professor says the playing surface is critical to preventing injury.
There's a lot of concern or increased concern with things like concussions. And if the surface is too hard, that's going to translate more energy back to the athlete's head and potentially end up in concussions.
The researchers here actually test the hardness of the grass with special instruments. The university switched to artificial turf a few years back, but ended up switching back to natural grass turf.
The drawback often with synthetic fields, there's a temperature issue. The surfaces have reached temperatures of 170 to 200 degrees.
Going the natural route is good news for Keith Truenow. His turfgrass farm is located just down the road from the university.
Well, we're rolling up some Celebration Bermuda grass for a sports field in Orlando, and it's a football field. And it's a really good grass. It's very aggressive growing grass. It does well for traffic and wear.
The turfgrass industry really took off during the housing boom, and when the market collapsed, especially here in Florida, farmers like Truenow were hit hard.
When the housing environment stopped, people didn't need grass, so the supply and demand was way off kilter.
Truenow says he sees the demand picking up slightly, but what about water conservation?
We have things like soil moisture sensors that can be included or incorporated into an irrigation system that would allow the irrigation system to irrigate the plant community when it needs it.
Researchers are also working on new grasses that need less water and fertilizer.
One may have better shade tolerance, one may have better disease tolerance, and if shade is your major problem, then you want that specific grass. If you live in an area where insects or diseases are the primary problems, then you want a grass that potentially tolerates those pest problems.
Still want to disrespect this agricultural commodity? Well, think about this. Grass filters water that comes off of your driveway and removes pollutants from water in the soil.
And turfgrass systems have a great cooling effect in our environment. The area of turf that's roughly the size of a football field has the cooling effect of a 70-ton air conditioner.
So Kevin, it's not very many research facilities that have their own putting course?
No, there's not.
But it's a fitting addition to a farm focused on grass research. After all, many graduates here will end up maintaining landscapes at golf courses.
Turfgrass management would be the goal of the students coming out of the Turfgrass Science program at the University of Florida.
Nice shot.
Well, thank you.
We're just about out of time, but before we go, remember you can always find videos from all of our shows and a whole lot more. It's at our website, americasheartland.org. And you can connect with us on Facebook, Twitter, or spend some time on our YouTube channel as well. Thanks for being with us. We'll look for you next time on America's Heartland.
You can purchase a DVD or Blu-ray copy of this program. Here's the cost. To order, just visit us online or call 888-814-3923.
You can see it in the eyes of every woman and man in America's heartland, living close to the land. There's a love for the country and a pride in the brand in America's heartland, living close to the land.
America's Heartland is made possible by Crop Life America, representing the companies whose modern farming innovations help America's farmers provide nutritious food for communities around the globe. The Fund for Agriculture Education, a fund created by KBIE to support America's Heartland programming. Contributors include the following: